fifth time in the last six games we're sitting here breaking down a Baylor loss. The difference is this is the last one.
This is it.
This is it. We're done. I guess the other difference is, you know, unlike the last couple of games, at least they were in this one at the end.
I mean, it was kind of a perfect microcosm of the season. There's kind of hope and faith, fight, and it ends in disappointment.
Right.
And yeah, I mean this. Listen, Baylor was in a tough spot today, losing caden-knighten. He was stretchered off. Bryson Washington went down on the second play of the game, kind of down to your redshirt freshman running back who has had what 8 carries all season. And
you already didn't have Michael Trigg in this game.
Right. He was out with a head injury, as Dave said after the game. And certainly the injuries on the defensive side of the ball we've been talking about all season. So, I mean, this was a game that I think Baylor had every chance to win. Especially in the second half, they played well defensively, pretty much, aside from maybe a couple plays here and there. But this was a game that I think Baylor had. They wanted, certainly for the seniors, they wanted to get to a bowl game, and like I said before, just kind of ends in disappointment.
Yeah, and you make some good points on the injuries. I probably didn't play that up enough in my column. They did have some good excuses. Here's the other thing that I did mention in my column that I mean, there's no question to me that they did not get any breaks from the officials today. Now, the tried and true football adage is, don't put yourself in position to leave it up to the refs.
Correct.
And Baylor did that, and so why do we think they're going to get lucky with a call now? But certainly there was a couple passes there at the end of the game into the end zone where it looked like DPI to me.
And I mean, Dave said he did ask about that to the refs, and he said when Baylor was getting called for DPI, pass interference or personal fouls or whatever, like they were not looking at the ball, and Houston was. But again, it's all excuses, and I do think that I think look, especially that last play to Jaden Porter in the end zone, that to me was a pass interference call, even if the refs didn't call it, which would have changed things.
Yeah, it certainly would have. But here's the thing. I mean, if you just finish off some of those first half drives with touchdowns instead of field goals, then it's a different game. It's a different story, and you're not having to worry about it.
6 trips to the red zone, 1 touchdown out of those 6 trips,
Yeah.
which is, that's you can't win if those are your numbers.
Sure, absolutely. So the offseason starts now for Baylor, and we already know that Dave Aranda's going to be back for 2026. We'll see, how long that lasts or whatever. I mean, I think the clock probably starts the minute the ball is kicked off in the season opener in Atlanta. Yeah. I mean, what to you are just the biggest priorities for Baylor this offseason?
They need to, for me, they need to get game changers in the front 7 on defense, because I think that's where we Sawyer even said it today. Dave Aranda is a defensive mind. I know it's been kind of a bit on every Baylor podcast out there that he is a defensive mind that has the worst defense in the Big 12, but that's really where they need to shore things up. And if Dave Aranda wants any chance to stick around past next year, he needs to bring in game changers in the portal that can play now. High school recruiting is great, but to me, he needs to go out and find guys that can, be dominant on the defensive line. And I think Keaton Thomas has 1 year left. I think he will come back. Everything I know about him tells me he will come back to Baylor, but they need other people around him that can change the game, because that's how Baylor can do what they want to do. And so I think that's to be priority number 1, is hitting the transfer portal hard for guys in the front 7 on defense.
And just to flip that around, like repeatedly in the post game press conference, Dave mentioned the words, building from the inside out. I think he was not just referring to the defensive line or the front seven. I think he was also
True. Oh,
referring to the Baylor, to the O line, which, going into the year, I think we thought would be a big strength. And, they weren't god awful,
No.
but they weren't great. And I think talk about a microcosm of this team. Um, the offense was just very inconsistent. When it gets down to the numbers at the end of the year, they're going to be top 20, top 30 in the country, probably top 30. Which okay, that's good. But like there was just way too many times, including today, where uh, Sawyer was a little off. They didn't have a running game.
Right.
The blocking, was not there. Sawyer had no time, or they just didn't finish off drives.
I mean, and I think that they do have. You mentioned the offensive line. That's a good point. Just because I mean they're going to have to find a new offensive line coach after Mason Miller left the program a few weeks ago, and what I think 2 of the 5 are graduating, including kind of your leader in Omar Egbedion. So you're right. I think that they have a good enough core coming back to where I think that the offensive line could rebound next year. But again, everything is kind of up for grabs at this point at Baylor. Like there needs to be some big changes because obviously this season was not good enough or acceptable enough.
Yeah, no question. And I know the fans are uh, angry, upset, disappointed, frustrated, all the words that Dave Aranda uses in a post-game press conference. And they have every right to be. It'll be interesting to see, what they do with the new athletic director hire, who they bring in there. Because to me, it's pretty likely that you're going to bring in someone who has no loyalty to Dave.
Right.
So, I mean, the pressure's going to be on Dave, going into next season. And I said it a couple weeks ago. I feel like 9 or 3 or better has to be sort of, what they're shooting for, because I think it's going to take that to get the fans back on your side.
I don't know. This is, and one of the things that, Linda told me when I talked to her last week is that, Dave is a great guy and people need to get to know him, and I struggle to believe that is possible. That I believe he can change, he can embrace the transfer portal. He can, call defensive plays. He can change his things on the football field. But as a person, as his personality, that's who he is. And I don't think that's going to change.
And I don't think you want him to be inauthentic to who he is. Like, to me, there was nothing more, well, the kids would say cringe, right? Than when like Brian Kelly was doing this Louisiana accent, like we don't need Dave being someone other than who he is. But we do need the best version of Dave. And there are some things where he's got to get better. I mean, and it always feels like he's like late to the party on a lot of things, where it's like, late to the party on the transfer portal or NIL or whatever. And it's the time's running out to be late.
And I mean, at some of that, I think is almost you can't repair it. I know it needs to be repaired. That's a goal, but I think that the bridge, the gap between where it is and where it needs to be is so wide that I don't know if you can do that in even a football season, aside from an undefeated national championship season, which I do not think Baylor's.
Well, and to me, the most likely scenario is that Baylor loses a couple of games early next season. I mean, they've got Auburn and SMU in their first 3.
Right.
Prairie View A&M they ought to beat. But,
they should. You never know.
But and Baylor pulls the plug at that point, because then you're able to kind of do what Oklahoma State did this year and really take some time and identify your candidate, find out who the hot guy is, try to go get that guy, and um, I mean, it sounds uh, like a pretty rough season for the fans to have to go through, but do you eat 2026 in order to be better in 2027? I don't know.
Yeah, it's not there was so much hope going into this season. Like
Mm,
we had all this like,
yeah.
I think everybody was on board. It wasn't just me being optimistic me
No.
thinking that, this team could compete for a Big 12 title. And now here we are, thinking that the Independence Bowl would be looking pretty sweet right now. But it's I mean, now they're not even going to one. So
Sorry,
just
Baptist. If you want to go to the casinos in Shreveport, you're gonna have to do that without a football game.
do people do that like willingly? Not to all
Go
of
to
our
the
fans,
casinos.
all of our fans going to Shreveport. All of our
Oh,
fans in Shreveport. I've never been to Shreveport, but
yeah, as far as I know, there's people that go. Like, I think anyone like close to the Louisiana border, they like to go across that border because it's legal over there. It's very similar to that casino in South Oklahoma, when you
right.
the Windstar that you. So yeah.
I don't mean to disparage all of our Louisiana fans.
Right, right. I'm sure we have a lot of them on our podcast. Yeah, so let's flip the page to basketball
Let's.
season, and a lot more hope there for Baylor.
I'll see you at the Baylor Grambling State tomorrow. I
Nice.
can't wait.
Nice. Awesome. Sounds good.